Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. If you're watching, you already know we are blessed to have a superstar in today. You've probably seen her on the podcast in the last few years. She now has her own podcast that she does called Ask the Betrayed. So she's rising up in the world. She'll be on tour, probably on The View and Oprah before we know it. Just kidding. But Sharon, thank you so much for coming in. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Sam?
I'm doing great. I'm thrilled that you're in. I'm so excited to have you in. It's been a while. You've been out here doing your own thing. So maybe take a minute. How is Ask the Betrayed going?
I have been a reluctant podcaster, and I'm doing it with Ray, one of the coaches that we are lucky enough to have work with us at CORE, and we're having a ball. And I think it's actually helpful too.
I think it's very helpful. I have lots of clients, both betrayed and unfaithful, who are watching it and really enjoy the content, really enjoy y'all's heart to be able to speak to the issues and make it palatable because we're dealing with something that obviously we both know from our own caseload is an epidemic. And something that you also do is you and James do intensives all the time, and we're always talking about them. You do personal as well as marital intensives. So maybe take a moment just to describe what the sweet spot is for intensives that you guys do, because there's nobody better at doing intensives than you guys. That's the honest truth.
You're so sweet. So I think that the sweet spot for folks is to really be honest with us when they come to us to ask about doing an intensive. I think to be really honest with us about where they are in their journey. We do in the beginning of a healing journey, we do in the middle, we do at the end. It's so much fun custom creating every intensive that we do. The sweet spot isn't necessarily at a certain time in the recovery, but it is coming to us with some honesty about what it is you actually want to work on and where you are.
And I love that because your intensives are targeted care. And that's something that cannot be underscored enough is how important infidelity and or addiction requires targeted care. And so I get to be best friends with your husband, who's one of my favorite human beings in all of the world. But that's one of the things that when I send my clients to you guys, I tell them this is targeted care. This is not a plug and go, same thing every intensive, every couple. No offense to anybody that does that, but you guys are rock stars at that. So for maybe people that haven't met you before, haven't heard your older podcasts, haven't checked out Ask the Betrayed just yet, what's just a little bit about your past and a little bit about your pedigree, if you will?
Sure. So I have been a therapist for over 30 years, and I used to specialize in naughty little boys.
Hmm.
And I think that it really set me up for my real job, which has been working with unfaithful and betrayed partners. I was a play therapist, and we still use a lot of tools that I learned in the world of play therapy in our intensives. We have been doing intensives for, gosh, I wish James was here because he's the numbers guy. But I want to say for maybe 12 years. We were the first people in our arena of care to do personalized intensives. And we have never really left that love of ours, which is doing individual or couples intensives versus group intensives. We feel like that it is so important for us to sometimes hear people and see people for the very first time day after day. And that's where the value comes in. If we can create that safety for them within the days that we have them, then they can lay down some of the tragic choices that they have made to survive life and pick up new skills so that they can live differently. And boy, does that just get me so excited. I can't stand it.
Well, and that's what people in distress want. Somebody that loves what they do, has a passion for what they do, but has also been through it. And we don't have time to go through it today, but you are definitely a survivor, and you're one of the, I think, pioneers when it comes to dealing with infidelity, and you have so much to give for the betrayed. And so today we're going to jump into today's meat, if you will, and let the audience understand I'm off-site today and I didn't bring my really good camera. So we have a little bit of a backdrop today. I know people are like, Sam, what are you doing? Where are you? When you forget your really good camera, you resort to this kind of stuff. So today, though, one of the things that I'd like to ask you, that it is so common for the betrayed, male and female betrayed, is to have a belief system that says, obviously I wasn't enough or they wouldn't have cheated. Something must have been wrong with me. Something must have been insufficient about me for them to go do what they did, right? How do you help the betrayed understand that you sure weren't perfect and you weren't the Christ or you weren't deity, if you will, but that doesn't mean that you somehow were insufficient, so they went looking for sufficiency. Am I right?
Absolutely. So I'm going to speak first from my own personal experience. And I'm going to say that I was a darn good wife twice.
Right. I don't doubt that at all.
And both of my husbands were unfaithful. And it's hard in light of that to not say, what is wrong with me? Obviously, I needed to evaluate my picker, but the reality of it is that I had a heart for these men who I loved with everything I had. And the fact that they chose to seek something different really had nothing to do with me. I could have been, I don't know, 6 feet tall. I'm very short. By the way, you've never met me, but I'm very short. I could have been 6 feet tall and it wouldn't have mattered. I could have been this, I could have been that. What we hear is, how can I control this so that it doesn't happen again to me? When we hear betrayed partners saying, oh, the affair partner was this or that or the other. And I say, the affair partner was a crack pipe
Right. That's exactly right.
with legs. And it doesn't matter. And we have this fund of knowledge from all of the people that we have seen that have been unfaithful over all of these years. And it is all shapes, all sizes, all colors, all genders. None of it matters. It is about wanting to feel important, loved,
Desired,
desired,
adored.
special,
Yeah.
worshiped, adored, all of those things. When you are in a relationship with someone else, that's real life. When you're in a real relationship, real life comes with ups and downs. Real life comes with real life problems. And we see each other for all of that. For an unfaithful, somewhere that becomes intolerable. Somewhere the need to only be seen in one way supersedes how you're being seen.
I love that. So the need to be seen one way, awesome, powerful, desirable, perfect. I use the term narcissistic supply, that we are the ace of spades, right? We're just, and so are you saying that we unfaithful can't tolerate when we have to show vulnerability or failure or we come up short or when real life happens, and so then we look for somebody to make us feel amazing again? Is that what you're alluding to?
Absolutely. I think about it. The time when someone chooses to be unfaithful in their lives. So if we're working with someone who's unfaithful and we think about, okay, when was that? What made you make that decision? We want to look at all kinds of things that are happening in their lives in order to figure out what was the catalyst for you to step outside of your own personal integrity to do what you've done. Oftentimes we see a change at work where all of a sudden you are questioning your ability to be who you thought you were, a change in something physical that's happening, a medical diagnosis, things like that. But oftentimes we see something that is really sad, and it's that they have tapped out the person that they are betraying. They have used them so much for their emotional support, their emotional energy, and they have drained them dry, and they move on to look for someone who has a ready supply of that.
You've put it so wonderfully. Now, I have to pose this follow-up question. I see this in my caseload. I know it comes your way all the time. How do you help the betrayed when the unfaithful, maybe they were an addict, maybe they were an addict brain, or maybe they were just pursuing and pursuing, and they were just going after these affair partners, and they were cards, flowers, poems, and then they look at their husband and they're like, or their wife, and they say, they've never written me a poem, they've never done these things, but they did all these things for the affair partner.
Mhm.
That's truly who they loved. That's
Mhm.
truly who they wanted, because they've never done jack boop for me. They've never done those things for me. How do you help the betrayed, male or female, wrap their mind around the fact that all of this activity chasing the crack pipe doesn't mean that they still don't love and want their betrayed, but as a betrayed, your mind goes, wait a minute, you've never done any of this for me, but you did all of this for them. Maybe that's who they want. Maybe that's who they just need to go be with. How do you help the betrayed walk through that?
Well, all of that flurry of activity goes into supporting the image that the unfaithful wants the affair partner to be seen as, right? So look how perfect I am. I can manage my regular life, and I can show up as Don Juan in your life as well. But it's really just a mask or props that go into the facade that the unfaithful wants to create in order to lure the affair partner who's going to give them what they think that they need and want. When I think about how that leaves a betrayed, right? We feel so shortchanged,
Right.
feel so bewildered at why, after all we've done to show up in the marriage or in the relationship, after all of that, what's left? What could we have done better? How could we have been more? When I think about that, I think about values, and I think about what we assign value to. And I think about so many of the betrayed partners that we work with who have done so much, and yet there is no value put on what they've brought to the marriage. So we really teach the betrayed to look at, how are you valuing the successes that you've brought to this relationship? Because if you're not valuing them, no one else will. What are your values and how have you lived them? How are you able to feel successful in the fact that, hey, I showed up every day?
Yeah.
If you start to value that, if you start to be accountable to the successes of that, then you can start feeling some power in your side of the relationship. And all of the sudden, that pendulum or the weight begins to shift. You start to feel powerful in the fact that you showed up authentically, not
I,
perfectly.
right. I love that. And I do know from talking to you for quite some time over the years and filming together and loving how pointed you can be. So, as the betrayed does that and they go, Sharon's right. I've done these things. I've worked hard in these areas. I've maintained my integrity and my character because I was unfulfilled too, but I didn't go outside the relationship. And so I can be proud of myself. is there then a point where the betrayed shifts and says, listen, unfaithful, you've done all this stuff and this flurry of activity. So if you really want us and if you want this, I need you to put up and shut up. Or is it more that the betrayed pulls back and goes, you know what? If I have to tell you, then something's wrong. If you can't show me that you want me, then we have a problem. Or is it both? How do you help the betrayed start to self-validate what you just laid out, but also have a pointed discussion? Or is that an expert third party that has to say to the unfaithful, male or female, bro, sister, the time is now? How do you help them navigate through that portal, if you will?
Well, I remember when we were early in our journey, James and I were, and I thought, I don't think that I could have been any more disrespected. Like, I just really don't
Yeah,
know how I could
that's
have
a
been
great
any
point,
more.
Sharon.
And so, you know what? I'm not going to put up with disrespect anymore. And so I thought about, what does disrespect mean to me, right? And I wrote for days about it. And so then James would come to me and he would say something disrespectful or do something disrespectful. I didn't have to give him a dissertation about what I had found out about what disrespect meant to me, but I could say, no, thank you.
Mm,
Could take an action that said, I no longer am willing to be treated that way. And it's for you to figure out how to treat me differently.
oh, I love that. I love that so much. Expand on that, because that's a great point.
I think maybe we've talked about this before, but you can buy hot potatoes on Amazon. And so oftentimes I tell the betrayed to get them a hot potato and you just toss it right back into their lap and say, it's your turn to figure this out. Because if we say, you should value me for this and this and this, it sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher,
Yeah,
right? Because if it's something that hasn't been valued before, if it's something that you allowed not to be valued, really what has to happen is that they have to figure out their ways. And this is where that expert comes in, right? So let's say that I sent James packing, right? And he comes to you and he says, Sam, buddy, I don't know what happened. And you would say, tell me. And so James would tell you the scenario, and you, being the expert that you are, would be able to say, aha, I see the problem,
yeah,
right? Did you notice this or did you notice that? Betrayal is so utterly humiliating
yeah,
that we have to, as folks who are willing to fight for betrayed, we have to be willing to give them ways to feel proud about themselves at every turn. And if you can be proud of saying, no, thank you, to a way that you've been treated before, if that can become a value of yours, then you have a leg up and a way out of the relationship the way that it used to be.
because you're taking your power back, right? You're saying, no, no, no. If I have to tell you to treat me a certain way, if I have to chase you to want me, if I have to chase you to do therapy, do coaching, read a book, all of that, at some level, we're just putting gas in that same machine that didn't work in the first place, right? Because I heard one betrayed say to her unfaithful, she said, much like what you're saying, she said, try again. And I was in session and I was like, ooh, Lordy, that hit right there. I got chills. And this was a really complicated situation, but she finally stood in her ground, stood in her power rather, and said, try again. And I said, so does it feel like you're no longer willing to tolerate certain things? And she said, Sam, I will not tolerate anything less than I deserve anymore. And I looked at him and you could tell he was like, uh-oh, I haven't met this person before. I guess that's a good question. Do you think that when the betrayed does this, they meet a version of themselves that maybe they haven't been acquainted with? And I don't mean that Because I know some would say, wait a minute, Sam, are you saying that because I wasn't my best self, it's okay that they cheated? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What I
Nope.
am alluding to is that there is the opportunity for transformation in the betrayed's life through this as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think about that turning point, right? That client of yours has reached this beautiful turning point where she says, I will not tolerate the old relationship. And maybe it's just in one way, like how you talk to me, right?
Sure.
But it is the beginning of designing something new.
Yeah. I love that so much.
We so often hear people say, I want to have back what we had, right? No, you don't want that back because you now are a different version. Given what's happened to you, you are a different version. You will never be the same person again. And so, who do you want to be moving forward? How can you take something that is so disrespectful, so disempowering, so humiliating, and define the life that you want out of that? And that's every betrayed's job.
I just love this so much because what's not embedded within this is suck it up, get over it, move on. None of that is being delivered by you today as a former betrayed who's had to go through monstrous amounts of trauma. If I say that, we get into some troubled waters. But it is the job of betrayed to find a way to make it make sense to them to embrace this new life. Is that fair?
It is fair.
It's hard as hell,
It's hard as
but it's
hell
fair.
and it's not fair, right?
Great point. Let the audience understand
It
that
is
is
not
not
fair,
fair.
right?
At the core, it is not fair at any level.
You are being forced to change because of someone else's behavior or not. There are the betrayed partners who walk away
Yeah,
and say, I'm done. There are the betrayed partners who don't choose to take the opportunity that's given to them, which is terrible opportunity.
yeah,
But I wouldn't be the woman that I am today without having fought with everything I had to become who I wanted to be. And I don't think when we get married, we're like, oh, the love of my life, and this is going to be so great. And we have these unmet childhood needs, and we pick people based on them and all of that. And you never think this marriage is going to transform me into the man or the woman that I want to be. But in reality, that's what happens.
yeah. You're exactly right. It is not the way that we would want it. I've never sat with a couple who wouldn't have traded bankruptcy or some other form of crisis instead of this because it is humiliating, it's degrading, it is life altering, and it oftentimes alters the lives of the kids as well, which no good parent ever wants to do that.
But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And so if
But
it happened, you got to do something about it.
you're exactly right. My last question, I had something else I was going to talk to you about, but you are hitting such a main artery that I think resonates with male and female betrayed all over the world. So we both know that James was not great early on in recovery, and that's putting it lightly. But for those that are looking at their situation going, dude, is there any hope? Like, my unfaithful, he or she is doing all of these things and what have you. And James is like family to me. So we certainly are not throwing him under the bus, but we are talking about he did some things really wrong. And so where you're at now, the day of our filming is November 3rd, 2025. As you sit, as you look in your life as someone who's been through it, and now helps people walk through it and is one of the best in the business. Were there times where you were like, we're done. This isn't going to work? And were there times where you had to find a way to just keep going? And then what is life like now? This has become your life and my life. We talk about it every single day, even days that we're not working. we both have a passion for this, but having been through it, were there points where you were like, dude, we're done. This isn't going to work?
Sure. So before on your podcast, I've told you what I said that whole first year, which was not very nice words, right? And then it became, I don't need you. I'll be just fine without you. I cannot tell you how many times I said that until I realized that I was telling myself that.
Yeah.
And I needed to make sure that was true. So we're big fans of make sure you have a very solid plan B in order to show up for plan A. So I needed to know that I could take care of myself, that I
Yeah.
could be a whole person without him. There were days that I was so glad we didn't live together. I can't even tell you that love and hate line can get really thin,
Right.
right? On those days, I would lay my head down at night and I would pray and I would know that the next day was going to be different. I might not feel different. He might not feel different, but there was going to be something in that day that was going to be different. You know, so often we're asked, what's the magic number, right? When are you
Yeah.
going to know if it's going to
Right.
work or not? And I'm going to say that there isn't really any magic, but I could tell at 6 months that he was fighting to change his life, that he was no longer willing to live life using other people the way that he had. Now, did he still try to use me? Absolutely. But I saw him changing. And for me, in that time in my life, that was enough for then. Then at 6 more months, so at the year marker, I could see that he was starting to see me as a whole person.
Mm.
I was no longer an object. I was no longer someone just to be used. I could take that.
Yeah.
Now, there were times in that first year where I chose not to see him for days, weeks. There might have been a couple of months that I chose not to see him. That was okay. I knew that my goal was to hold a safe space for our marriage for as long as I wanted to. And I
I
didn't know
love
what
that.
that was going to look like on the other end, but I knew that I loved him. And thank goodness he went after the work with everything that he had. And did it take longer than I wish it did? Yes.
Yeah.
Was it excruciatingly painful? Yes. But when I think about the man that he is now, when I think about the man that I get to be married to, his values, the way he sees life differently, the way that he shows up, I'm the luckiest woman in the world.
And I think I couldn't put a better ending on our time together than that, because it sounds romantic, but it is romance birthed out of tangible, palatable, gut-wrenching work that didn't just happen.
Mm-mm.
And so I just love so much about you. But today I just love the courage and the no nonsense answers from someone who's had to go through it multiple times. And so I'm just overjoyed that you would spend your time with myself and the audience today. I find you just a ray of hope. And I know so many betrays, male or female, have so many notes they probably took today from just your courage, but just the wisdom of someone who's been through it. So if people want to consider, I think there's people that might want to do a personal intensive with you, because if they can come out of their story feeling what you're feeling and living the way they're living, then man, they're going to want that. So if people want to know about intensives personally or maritally, how can they find out more information?
So they can go on our website, which is hopeforus.com, and contact us that way. They can email info@hopeforus.com. They can actually go straight to Gail, who is our office manager, and she's Gail at hopeforus.com. And she will get you in front of either me or me and James, and we can talk about what we think might work for them. We don't have a lot of time for one-on-one sort of regular therapy stuff, and we
Sure.
have a fantastic group of women who have worked with us for years and years that we offer up based on the type of work that we think would work for people to do that one-on-one work with.
Wonderful. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening or tuning in. I hope that this has been as much of a riveting conversation for you as it has been for me. I could listen to Sharon for hours. And Sharon, thank you so much for coming in. If you want help from myself or if you need insight, you can always reach out to me by leaving a comment here or emailing me at samshealingpodcast@gmail.com. But if you don't get help from us, get targeted help from someone who's an expert, who knows what they're doing, because there is hope for you. And I end almost every podcast with, we don't know what's going to happen for your relationship, but as you've heard from Sharon, I do know what can happen for you if you're willing to take the leap that it requires to work on yourself. So Sharon, thanks again for coming in. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on the podcast.